And there we have it, live and kicking, as we say here with wise words. Lee.
Hello.
God bless you to be on here, mate. Thank you much for jumping on. When I have people who I want to speak to, it's usually because they have a story and something to tell. And I have to say, mate, when I've been watching your videos, not only have they broken my heart, but it's also made me think I want to speak to this guy. I want to find out more about his situation, what he's been going through. So thank you ever so much for jumping on this. I really do appreciate it. Okay, so as you've got under your name there, you are on YouTube. You've recently begun making videos under the alias The Alienated Dad. Okay. Yeah. And for those who might be watching this who are not really au fait with that sort of term, what would you sort of like interpret alienation as when it comes to parents? What does that mean to you?
The concept of alienation is pretty simple. It's when one parent separates the children from the other, cuts all communication, all access, and you're left with absolutely no other option but to go towards the legal system and into the family courts for hope of seeing your children again. And that's Absolutely. It. Very simple.
And this is what you've done. You're really sort of in the thick of this, aren't you? But you've been putting out these videos, and that is how obviously we found each other on there. And I think it's good that we're going into this journey with each other, because there's a lot of people out there who I think are going through similar things, and maybe they can get some inspiration, some motivation from yourselves. So absolutely, let's kick into this, okay? But before we go into the meat of it, the real red meat of everything, okay, I just want to sort of get a bit of an idea about Lee, okay? So take me back, Lee. Take me back to childhood, okay? Growing up, obviously, both parents on the scene.
They're probably sat there watching me live right now. My mum did say she will be. So. Hi, Mum. Hi, Dad. My upbringing.
A stable upbringing for you.
Yeah, my upbringing was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. What you class as a traditional family, you know, mum, dad, uncles, aunts, nans, granddads. And everybody was tight-knit, close. We'd have, you know, yearly get-togethers, family do's, things like that. And so, yeah, that's all I knew growing up. You know, I just knew, to me, that was the normal. So, yeah, really, really good Christian, not Christian religion, but Christian values-based family, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, very, very good. Yeah, there's nothing I can ever look back on and say, do you know what I mean, that I was failed or I was let down or I was hurt. My parents, the way they've raised me to be the best man, you know, and turned to be the best father as well that I could be. So I always look up to my dad as a
wholesome upbringing, an absolute wholesome upbringing, which I would have thought to you would have shown you mum and dad and how the two work together.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely. So from watching your videos, because I've been taking bits and pieces from what you've been saying. So it sounds to me, don't get me wrong, if I'm wrong here, tell me, okay? But the mother of your children, not the first marriage, is that correct?
I've had a couple of relationships prior to her, a couple of teenage ones. I'm going into my 20s. One I was actually married to a girl prior to my the mother of my children. But the other relationships leading up to when I was sort of 19 were just boy girlfriends, a couple of months here and there, a couple of, you know, the usual. The next relationship was a 4.5-year relationship, and that ended with her cheating on me and going off with another man that got her pregnant behind my back. So I came through quite a lot of trauma, and that was the start of 2005. So I was 25, just turned 25 at the time. And then I was on my own for 6 months, five months before I met, and I'm happy to say her first name, Sarah, who became the mother of my children.
Because you've got a bit of an interesting background there, haven't you? Was it running your own shop? Was it costumes and stuff like that? Was that how it
started? It's a long story, but originally the business started off as fancy dress costumes, novelty goods and jokes, you know, like blackface soap and fart gas and stink bombs. alongside Halloween costumes, Christmas, costumes. And in the area that I was working at the time, there was nobody else doing that sort of thing. It hadn't really took off as a big thing in this country for people to, to use fancy dress costumes. So that was how the business had begun. It definitely evolved into completely different subjects over the years. But it's a business that I'd run, up until about 3 years ago nearly. And that's consumed, all my years as an adult, really. And it's what I've focused on. I've ended up winning some international awards. I launched my own brand within the business that had, that's gone international. And a long story short, but alongside the 9 years of alienation, or the first 7 years of that, really, I was also trying to fight for the business. There was a lot going on from higher places against the industry that I was working in. So that's another whole story, which does sort of tie in to the other story, fighting for my children, because both of them are the two chunks of my life. So it's very complex.
Just before we get into the serious stuff, go on. What was your most popular costume that people used to
blimey. To be honest with you, the fancy dress costume really was only around for one season. And then I moved into army equipment and camouflage suits and things like that. So pre-issued army gear. So the business evolved rapidly over a few years until it sort of found its place really and settled down, and then begun to really grow. So it's gone through a lot of stages, and a lot of stages that, as I was going through the journey of trading in different goods, you learn about them goods as you're going along. And but I can get into all that later if you want to. Anyway,
absolutely. Because
I don't want to scare any viewers off.
No, that's all right. No, we want everyone to be scared, but I'm interested because, by the sounds of things, if I'm going right from what you were saying in your videos, the mother of your children was actually the sister of one of your friends or someone you used to speak to. Is that correct?
No, not a sister of a friend. She has a sister, an identical twin sister, and she has a younger brother. I met her through the business because her brother used to come into my shop. So it was through that situation. He was buying products off me, and once or twice she came in with a brother and a mum. And there was just the one day when I said to her brother, I'd been on my own, as I said, for about 5 months at a time, and I said to him, I said, "Is your sister seen anybody?" Knowing that he'd go home, tell her, and the next day she walked past, and she was smiling from ear to ear. She just walked past my shop, looked in at me as she walked past. It was an indoor shopping centre, so it was quite an open front. And she just walked past with the biggest smile. I'll never forget that moment. Yeah, brilliant.
You feel like, especially, I guess, after the relationship you'd had beforehand and how that finished, it must have felt like a big sort of burst of new energy for you that, there's someone new,
it does. Yeah, I mean, in the previous relationship, which I said lasted 4.5 years, what was it, around about 3 months before she left me, I'd found a picture on a phone, a small digital camera, sorry, not a phone. It was what we now refer to as a selfie. But it was a selfie of another guy on our digital camera alongside our bed, and he took it himself lying on our bed. And he was topless. He was topless on the photo. And of course, that was in around about the October time of 2004. We'd got a holiday booked from when we got married the previous year. We were having a honeymoon, but we saved up for it over the following year, over to Canada. And I'd found this photo only a month or two before we were due to go to Canada. Somehow I found the strength within me to stay with that and to trust that nothing had happened. You come up with a bit of a cover story that she was doing some gardening and he worked in a computer shop. He came over to set the computer up and he must have took this photo while she was gardening. What that did to me on an emotional level, I didn't understand the damage that had caused at the time. I just focused on, okay, we'll stay together. We'll get the holiday over and done with. And then over the Christmas period, I was going to ask her about marriage. No, not marriage, sorry, about having a child. We've been married. I was looking forward to asking her about having a child. It's something she'd wanted literally 4 years that we've been together. I was just waiting until I was ready for that. Come that Christmas, she didn't want a child. I was gobsmacked. It was something I saved to say on to her on Christmas Day. But yeah,
You must think back to then and think, thank God.
she knew she was pregnant at the time. She left me at the end of January of 2005. And it was only then another friend who was an acquaintance of both of us came to me and said she's pregnant. And she had the baby. Was it 7 or 8 months after she left me?
Mate.
I mean, I look back on it, it was an incredibly tough time to go through. It was a few months of getting up in the morning with my dog. I had a King Charles Cavalier called Charlie. He kept me going. He'd become, everything for me. I would walk him to work. It was a 2-mile trip to work. He'll spend the day in the shop with me. And that relates through to when I met Sarah. And then I'd walk him to my parents' house, another 2 miles, and then another 2 miles home on the evening. And I'd done that for about 5 months. And I couldn't bear being in the house on my own, which is why I was going to my parents after work. And Charlie, I couldn't stand the thought even, he's a dog. I didn't want to leave him on his own. I didn't like being on my own. So I took him everywhere with me. And the way that relates to meeting Sarah was Charlie was in the shop with me the one day. Sarah had walked past, only a day or two earlier with this big smile. And I'd seen her. She came in on the other side of the indoor centre and I knew she was going to walk around and back past my shop. But she got Tyler, and at the time, Tyler was 21 months. And he come running down to my shop and went into my shop to fuss the dog. So his mum's walking down behind, and there's no getting out of it now. And we chatted. I gave him a number on a business card, which she kept in her purse the entire 12 years or almost 12-year relationship. Yeah. Special moments. You don't forget them things.
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, let's be honest about it. Everything's hindsight, isn't it? If people knew how things were going to end up, you wouldn't go into any relationship, would you, really? Because especially if you knew it was going to end up a certain way. So it's not wrong to think that, well, actually, it started off very bright and nice, because they all do, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
And so you two, you obviously started a relationship with each other. How long into that relationship before marriage, kids, and all that sort of thing came into it?
Marriage is another story.
Right. Okay.
But of course, I'm now raising Tyler from 21 months, so I've become a dad. The moment I met her, within 2 weeks of meeting her, she'd already explained to me how her mum, in her own words, I've got to say that, quotations, how her mum was abusing her, emotionally, using her to cook, clean. She had to bathe her mum because her mum was in a wheelchair and had a lot of her own issues. She didn't have a dad. She grew up without a dad. And the only thing she ever knew was that her dad lived in Australia, which just sounds like the standard, cover story for why your dad's not around. So she'd grown up fatherless with her mum. Her mum had grown up through foster care. She was abused herself when she was a child, which is why she ended up in the wheelchair with IBS, but she had a lot of problems herself. If I tell you she weighed somewhere between 5 to 6 stone,
Wow.
She was very fragile, very ill. I haven't been in touch with her now for quite a few years. But so Sarah at that time was, from what she was explaining to me, having to do everything to keep the house running, to look after her mum. Her twin sister had moved out with her partner, so it was all on Sarah. She was working she was going to a local college. She was doing work as well. I think it was a hairdresser. I can't remember exactly. And then going home and having to look after her mum. So the struggles that she was going through and how she relayed all that across to me. It was only 2 weeks later. I'm living in a 3-bedroom, family home that's empty, just on my own with Charlie. So, of course, just 2 weeks went by and she moved in with me. For me, it was brilliant. I've got company, I was in love. It was amazing. And I wouldn't say it was the wrong thing to do, looking back in that sense, moving into, because we lasted nearly 12 years. So the relationship.
Well, that's the thing, because I'm pretty sure I think, to be fair with you, I think people who are outside of this bubble will probably look at this and go, "What were you doing?"
Yeah, that's how it come. That's why I'm trying to, cover myself quickly, on the back of saying that, because I was in love. I was head over heels in love, and I was searching for happiness at the same time, having came out of the previous relationship and what I went through. So yeah, I jumped in, but the red flags, which is what I've spoke with a lot of people about since, I didn't see at the time. I was unaware of what I was walking into. And the red flags were the simple fact that she's a single mum. Now, that's nothing against other single mums. You know, I've got to cover myself again there. But it should be seen, you know, it's sad, it's unfortunate, but it should be looked at by any man getting into a relationship with a mum and there's no father on the scene, unless that man knows the history, you know, and where the dad's gone and why he's no longer on the scene. Then you should do some research before you get into a relationship like that, regardless of how nice, you know, she seems. Because Sarah, you know, on the surface, and if I use the term covert narcissist, she was amazing, bubbly, happy, jokey, everything about her, you know, gorgeous at the same time. So I
And you
was head
wouldn't have
over heels.
suspected a thing at all at that point. You assumed the father of the child probably was a piece of shit, you know, and he's
Well, I
gone
was
and
told,
bad,
and I was never told who he was. She always
you know.
kept that from me until very near the end of the relationship.
Wow, that's interesting.
It was only as Tyler got older and wanted to find out who his dad was, but his mum wouldn't help him track his dad down. So I said, I'll help him. And in the indoor shopping centre I was working in, there's a tattooist in there who I knew Sarah's partner when they were younger.
Ooh.
So I spoke to him, and he helped me track Tyler's dad down. But I'm just trying to get the timelines
Oh
right
yeah,
in my head now.
absolutely, yeah.
I didn't know where he was, but I knew who he was by this time. You know, I knew that he was an apprentice tattooist that was working in the tattoo studio in the indoor shopping centre. The first time Tyler met him, though, it would have been the end of June 2017. And all the way through all them years, you've got to remember Tyler's 13 now, and then you can add another 9 months of pregnancy to that. He's 13 coming on 14. His dad never knew he existed. So she got pregnant with him and quickly removed him off the scene before he found out that she was pregnant. So Tyler was born to a single mum with no father on the scene. When I got with her, I was stupid. And I just believed what I was told, that he was an a-hole, that he was abusive, controlling, manipulative, all the same things that she said about her mum, all the same things that she now says about me, that she said about other previous friends, you know, in recent years as well. I know a lot more.
The problem is, Lee, is that you don't have the history to see that there's a common denominator here. You know, isn't it weird that everybody that's in your life treated you this way? It doesn't happen like that.
Yeah.
It might happen once. I dare say it might happen twice, but everyone that you deal with seems to treat you a certain way. That to me, that's a red flag, big time there. Which obviously you didn't find out till later.
Well, a year after meeting her, Lily was born in August 2006. So, you know, I got straight into a relationship. I've become a father again for, you know, my own biological child this time. And no, I didn't foresee anything that was going to come. And it was only really from around 2012 and onwards that issues within the relationship that I didn't realise were relationship issues, that I pinned things onto myself thinking that I was at fault. And it was only really from sort of 2012 that I started to notice signs that I was struggling. And of course, you don't realise at the time why you're struggling. And I was. Do you remember there was a series on called Spartacus Blood and Sand?
Yes, very much. For everyone who doesn't know about it, well, certainly R-rated.
That's right.
Say. Very much like Game of Thrones, but on speed, basically.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Well, we used to watch that. Now, leading up to that time, and I've been with her from 2005, and now we're in, what was it, around 2012. So, sort of 7 years we've been together. No issues, nothing at all. All of a sudden, from that point onwards, watching that, and I remember sitting on the sofa, and she sat next to me, and Mr. German star comes onto the telly, if you know what I mean, hanging down to his knees. And that was the first times I knew I was starting to get uncomfortable with things like that. Now, it's not something that had affected me in the first 7 years of that relationship, but what I could look back to is the last part of the relationship with Emma, the girl that I'd married before meeting Sarah. Once I'd seen that photo that was on the digital camera of the other guy, you know, on our bed, I thought I became what me and talking to my parents about how I was struggling emotionally with that. I thought I was overprotective.
Right.
overprotective. It just made sense with the way I was, that I was reacting to how she had started to dress then. So remember, this is Emma. This the end of the relationship in the end of 2004, going into the start of 2005, and I'd begun to struggle. When we separated, of course, when she ran off, got pregnant and ran. I went through the first, the months of depression, of losing weight and struggling to, to continue, thinking, even though I'm only 25, thinking my whole life was over. And then got into the relationship with Sarah. So I said for 7 years, everything was brilliant. And I started to notice I'm all of a sudden feeling uncomfortable. Over a couple of years, that progressed to the point where there was an advert for Oikos yogurts, and you get the guy coming out wrapped, got a towel on only. And I found myself struggling with that. And you're seeing things and you think, why am I struggling with this? And I can't be what it turned out to be. I thought I was suffering with OCD then at this point. And in the end, I finally worked out what was happening. It was anxiety. And if I just jump forwards quickly, just to put this into sense, a year after Sarah, I had a short relationship with a girl that I knew from high school. She was my high school sweetheart through the early and into the mid 90s. And we only were together for a few months, about 3 months in 2018. And she was, she liked her men. So that's why that relationship didn't last very long at all. But again, once I'd seen the signs and seen that things were happening, that whole anxiety started to consume me again. It just come flooding back into me. So it was through the three relationships.
Not to sort of jump in on this. Is this the sort of the worry about the sexualization of everything and the potential for somebody else?
No, it's not, because I was never worried that Sarah had men at a toddler group that she was running for around about 8 years. So I wasn't worried that men were going there. She was hiding it, but this is how it all relates. What was actually happening, and it took me 3 relationships to fully understand what anxiety is. And the anxiety, if you can exchange the word anxiety for the word fear, then you know how to conquer it. It's a fear. So in me, I was fearful of Sarah seeing other men, naked on the TV, things like that. But then there was the other half of it where I was also fearful of other men seeing Sarah, so that made me struggle if she put a low-cut top on, for example. Now, I'd never, ever turn around and said to her, you can't wear that, please don't wear that. But the battle I had to have in my brain.
Where was your brain taking you during that?
Intense. Sorry?
Yeah. Where was your brain taking you in those situations?
Well, it's your mind that takes over, completely takes over. It paralyzes you. It physically paralyzes you. So what your mind does when you've got anxiety is instead of having a realistic image of a situation in your mind, you've got the fear, everything that you're scared of, that the anxiety feeds. Very hard to explain, but I'd always imagine the worst things. So, for example, Sarah went swimming the one day. Now, she'd hid that she was going swimming from me for probably the entire relationship. I don't know, because I was working 6 days a week. So, and then the one day I'd employed somebody to work for me, and I said to Sarah, oh, you're going swimming? I'll come up with you then. And she really didn't want me coming along. And what really got to me was she told me that it was a mixed male-female changing room, and I'm at the height of my anxiety at this point. This is 2015. And so to me, men and women changing together, I'd never heard of anything like it. And so I just wanted to go along and see the reality. Well, this is how I found out it was mixed male-female. I said to her, I'll come along. I said, I'll walk through the men's changing rooms, because I just wanted the idea in my head, the reality of what it was like when she goes swimming. I don't go swimming myself. I haven't been swimming since I was about 11, 12 maybe. And the anxiety is telling me all these ridiculous thoughts. So I just wanted to put the reality in there instead. When I said to her, I'll just walk through the men's changing rooms, I'll come out to the pool side, she says, it's a mixed changing room. I was like, what? So throughout 2015, I battled this all the way through 2015, and got completely on top of the anxiety by the end of 2015 with what's called saturation, which is because it's a fear. So if somebody's scared of heights, they jump off a height with a parachute, for example, that fear's gone. So for me, I sat at the computer with her and I loaded up naked men and put images on the screen in front of her. She was like, "Oh, don't do it. Oh, no, no." And we both laughed. But immediately, that emotion, the anxiety that completely consumed me was gone. But there was still the other half of the anxiety. So I went from one side of the stick to the other, where I wanted to put pictures in front of her now because of how brilliant it felt to be free, to be out of the grip of anxiety. But the other half of the anxiety was men looking at her. Now, whereas I can put a picture in front of her, I can't tell her, show yourself off in exactly the same way. I couldn't say to her,
No.
cover yourself up. So I'm in this situation now, and this is December 2015, where I said to Sarah, and it's in a text message history between us as well, I just need you to start dressing the way you want to dress. Because for me to face up to that half of the anxiety, that's it. You just wear what you want to wear and I'll deal with it. It took until June, a full 6 months, before she finally put a top on that wasn't revealing in any way, but it was more revealing than what she'd been wearing over the couple of
How
years
did you feel
before.
about that when you saw it?
It was brilliant. We'd walked through a shopping centre, an indoor shopping mall, and we'd walked all the way across this shopping centre, got to the cafe in there, sat down. I felt on top of the world. There's no anxiety left in me. It's completely gone. We sat on the cafe and she broke down crying. In that moment, I'm getting goose pimples now. I didn't know what was happening. And it would take the next couple of months really for it to click, to understand what was happening. As I was curing myself of anxiety, I was releasing myself of the control that she had over me because she could trigger that anxiety as and when she wanted to. So the better I got, the less control she had and the more downhill she went. So as I went up in the relationship,
tap into that, then, Lee, what would she do then to tap into that anxiety? What would she do?
It would be things in the morning. She'd put like a partially see-through blouse or something on just to trigger me. She wasn't going to go out the house like it, but she could just do things like that to get the anxiety in my mind going. And she would use that then if there was a situation where, say, I was going to go on an early morning school run with her, she would do something to trigger the anxiety, to put me into that anxious state so that to control how I appear in front of her friends. When we come back from that in that shopping centre on that day, and I felt on top of the world, and she's still got this same vest on that she'd wore. And we went straight to pick the children up from school on the way home. We went into the school, felt great. As we walked out the front of the school, she spotted a friend just at the end of the driveway, and she had a hoodie, and she quickly put the hoodie on and zipped it up to her neck. And I knew immediately what was happening because her friends were led to believe that I was telling her, you must cover up, you must wear this, you don't show anything off. So she had triangulated me over many years. I estimated at least 4 years from her friends. So it was incredibly difficult or rare that there'd be a situation when I was with her and we bump into them. She didn't like me coming on the school runs in the morning. I'd do the afternoon pickups. And that day, she zipped it right up to her neck. And I knew in a heartbeat, she just didn't want her friends to see her wearing this vest while I'm at her side because it tells them Lee hasn't got a problem with this. And yeah.
So does that there, I mean, what I'm taking from that is that this yarn had been spun with her friends for God knows how long. Lee's done this, Lee's done that, Lee is like this. It's that victim mentality then, isn't it? It's that setting the scene to sort of say, I live this horrible life and you should feel sorry for me. Is that what you feel was the case?
No, not really. She hadn't had a bad upbringing. There was no dad on the scene. Her mum had a boyfriend. So for a few years, I'm not too sure how many years, but at least in the earlier part of life when she was, I think, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and so on, there was a male figure on the scene. And she attached herself to his parents as grandparents. But she didn't come from an abused background. She didn't come from, anything other than a single mother. And it's a simple case, and there's no other way that you can look into this and, see it any differently of single mothers, raising daughters to become the next generation of single mothers. And that's why my daughter Lily has always been, and if Lily's watching this, it's hard to say it because I don't want Lily looking down on me. But I've got to be open and honest about the situation. And Lily was the target child. Oscar and Tyler, Tyler was 13 when she left me, and a 6-year relationship with his mum leading up to that of physical abuse. And he wanted out. He didn't realise in the first 12 months he could come back and live with me because of his age. The family court system, my own solicitor even wouldn't let us know that Tyler then could just decide where he wanted to live. So for that first 12 months, he was under the court, the court restrictions. And as soon as I found this out from my solicitor, I let Tyler know, and he come straight back to me. He just needed that, that final, I'm not going to get Dad into trouble or anything by coming back to him. So Tyler was back with me 12 months after she'd left me. There was the first period of alienation had lasted 6.5 months. We got the contact centre sorted. I won the first court hearing, if you want to call it a win. And that's all you get. You get your contact. You got to go to the contact centre for around about 6 weeks, 8 weeks or so process. Then you can start seeing your children away from the contact centre. And the first time I was away from the contact centre was when Tyler could speak. He'd actually not come to the last couple of contact centres because they were supervised, and he couldn't talk to me in there because they were writing everything down. And he didn't feel free. He felt watched and trapped. So the last couple of contact sessions we had, I thought I was losing him. But as soon as I had the first contact away from the contact centre, and I pulled up on the local car park, and his mum had got a big Locker People carrier van at the time, and Tyler come walking from around the side of it into view. It broke me.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. I mean, if I can go back, if I can, to this particular occasion, and you spoke about this on your most recent video, but you came home to find no one there.
Yeah.
So that must have been hard. That must have been horrific. Tell me about that.
There's actually 2 times. There's 2 situations for this. So the first one, which I've mentioned in my most recent video, I came home, what did I call it? I came home and my children were gone. On that day, as I said, I'd finished work, the tensions in the week leading up to that, and it was a Thursday. This was 27th of April, 2017. The tension was immense throughout that week. I'd got Sarah doing everything she could to try and get me back back into an anxious state. So she was going out in, I don't remember what it was now, but almost like she was walking the street, and that's not at all who she was. But she was dressing in a way that was really trying to ramp. It was a last gasp, desperate attempt to try and get some sort of a reaction from me, which she didn't get. And because of how high the tension was, I'd come out to work on that Thursday. I'd gone down with my parents for a couple of hours, and then I arrived back home at 8. So I walked into the front door at 8 o'clock on the night, completely empty house. Everybody was gone. I'm used to all the noise of having 3 children running around in there, kicking, screaming and everything. And then Sarah's usually in here doing the cooking, and the dogs are barking and spinning on the floor. We had 2 pugs, and they're usually spinning around on the floor, excited to see me. And it was deserted. It was empty. Yeah, there was nobody here.
Gutting, I imagine.
Well, by 8:05, there was a text message on the phone, and it had become the first bit of communication as an alienated dad. And the first thing I ever said was, just please, can you just let me know where the children are, that they're safe? That was it. That was the very first thought on my mind. Not, are you coming back to me? Are you leaving me? Nothing like that. It was just children. The children was my overriding priority. And that's why she alienated me. The more you love your children, the more likely, you are, this will happen to you one day when you separate, because it's the best weapon that can be used against you.
Something that I've noticed is they almost want you to just decide yourself, sod this, I'm not going to have anything else to do with this anymore, and just leave and just disappear. I think that's the ultimate goal. And then the more you're involved, or the more you want to be involved, the more angry they get, because they just want you to poof and disappear.
Yeah. I mean, I fought immensely hard to save that relationship, harder than I can explain in, any chat that we could ever have. I could never talk about what I went through, and even while I was being abused, I was being emotionally abused. And as I said, I got on top of the anxiety by the end of 2015, and the other half it was gone by the June of 2016. And to replace the emotional abuse that she was now losing over me, there was some physical abuse. You've got, at the time, I've been going to the gym for 7 years. I was weightlifting. So I still am 16 stone, but I was 16 stone more muscle then. And
Jacked.
yeah, I was a big guy, big, really strong as well. I had a lot of power behind me. And you're going to the gym 4, 5, 6 days a week for 7 years. And she was 9 stone. There was nothing to her in comparison, but it didn't stop her laying into me. It didn't stop me. Where I'm sat now, I'm in my living room and I was just curled up on the ball, on the floor over there in a ball the one day, as she kicked and punched the living hell out of me. Children,
Who would
in the
believe
hallway.
you? That's what you have in your head. Who would believe
Yeah.
that the big strong man is
Yeah.
having that
Yeah.
by a 9 stone woman? Because it happens, mate. It happens, and I think people have got to get into their heads that not that dynamic happens more often than people think. And just because you got the guy is like you'd have been, muscly, jacked, going to the gym and all that, doesn't mean that you would be doing things to her. But they have that power of being able to say, well, I can do something, but the second you do something, who they're going to believe?
Well, when I look back, the physical abuse was a relief. And it's, as I said, being a 16 stone, big guy, I could take a few punches and kicks off her. I'd get some scratches, bruises and bumps. But in comparison to what I'd gone through with the anxiety, it was almost paradise. I was completely free of what I seen at the time as of the real abuse, of the emotional abuse. And I do remember talking to a social worker that come over to my house the one day once we'd gone into the family courts. And I said to him, I says, exactly what I've just said now, the emotional abuse is a lot worse than the physical abuse. And he looked at me, he says, but isn't physical abuse also emotionally abusing? And the guy hadn't got a clue. He wasn't listening to what I was trying to say to him. When you're being punched and kicked, a few scratches compared to what you go through in anxiety. And I don't mean anxiety where somebody's got stage fright. I mean, real anxiety. I did say in one of my videos, I was self-harming. I'd take myself away from my partner, Sarah and the children, off into the downstairs toilet with a pair of scissors, and I'd slice myself. I've got areas of my body that I'd specifically target that wouldn't be shown. And the reason I ended up doing that, because at the time, before I'd figured out what the anxiety was, I blamed myself for everything, for all the problems that I were having in a relationship. I thought it was all on me. I thought, this is my fault that she's choosing to put a jumper on a sunny day. We'd go to the toddler group in a jumper with a scarf, and it was sunshiny outside, May, June, July time. And I blamed myself for it. I didn't realise that she was doing these things purposefully to keep me in that emotional state and to keep me blaming myself. I'm losing track of where I was aiming then.
No, I was going to say, because you came home, and in this particular time you was talking about they'd gone, and invariably she'd ended up, I believe, in a flat that was opposite for where you guys were. That to me was something that really stuck to me, because they're there within almost touching distance.
You can't reach.
They might as well be on the moon.
Yeah, at the September 2016, and I believe it was the 23rd. These dates have been sort of drilled into my mind over the years. I think some of them are starting to fade a bit now, thankfully. But I believe it was the 23rd, and I did explain this in a recent video that we'd gone and took the children swimming. Because I'd had the anxiety prior to this, going to the swimming baths had become a thing where each time I went, and with anxiety, you do what's called checking. So you have to you have to go and check that what the anxiety is telling you isn't real. So you've got to keep confirming in your mind that, no, that's not real, that's just a fear. But I've got to go and have a look to make sure that it is just a fear, that it isn't real. You're constantly having this battle. So throughout the 2016 year, I'd completely got over the checking and the anxiety, as I said, once we'd gone out in the June of 2016 and she'd wore that vest, the anxiety from that time on was completely gone. And then we'd gone out in the September, she took the children into the swimming pool. I'd sat in the cafe. I hadn't walked into the changing rooms. There was no checking. Everything was all behind me now. We came out, they'd had a great time in there. Everybody was happy. We walked out the front, sat in the car, and she hadn't said anything to me. And we drove up the road, and I looked round at her, and she was sat in the back passenger side. And I says, you okay? I said, what's up? And she's just looking out the window. She didn't respond to me. Just completely ignored me. We drove home and I could feel the tension there. What have I done? I knew what I'd done. I hadn't reacted to the anxiety. And so I knew by this time I understood what was really going on. And she didn't talk to me. That was on a Wednesday night. So she never spoke to me the entire night in the house. I went to work Thursday, come home, another night of no talking, same on Friday. And it got to the point on the Saturday where I sort of just not blew up in a violent physical way, but I just confronted her as she was walking in through the back door with a pile of clothes washing. And I just said, what the hell is going on? Why aren't you talking to me?
Well, you must have been at the end of your
Oh,
tether
yeah,
because
silent
I mean,
treatment.
silence is horrendous.
Yeah,
That then changes the whole atmosphere. And if you've got anxiety,
oh no, the anxiety was gone. The silent treatment was the reward for getting on top of the anxiety. So
I
with
wonder if it was done
anxiety,
to try and get it back for you, though. I bet that was the aim, to
yeah,
try and get you to get back
that's what
into
a lot of it was about. Yeah. And in that moment, she just put the clothes washing down on the sofa, and she just grabbed the phone, called her sister, Tasha, come and get me and the kids. We're leaving him. I've got no hair left, but I'd be ripping it out if I could. You know, what the hell have I done? I knew what had happened. I knew what was happening, and it was all on her. But I couldn't say that to her. I couldn't. So, for example, when I was just getting on top of the anxiety, I'd saturated the first half of it, which is what she can see of other men. Oh God, I've just lost my train of thought again.
No, you're absolutely fine.
Yeah, I've just gone for branch there. I forgot what I was aiming at.
Well,
I don't know if it's old age.
Well, I think, like I said, having them in a location that's so close to you, but you can't do anything about it.
Yeah,
To me,
I look out the front bedroom window and they're literally facing the house 100 meters, 150 meters away. And give you an idea of how that felt, there was the one morning. Oh, that's where I was explaining at the end of 2016 when that had happened at the swimming baths. She then left here. A sister come and got her. They went down a social club. She ended up living in that flat opposite me for 7 weeks before finally coming back in the November. In that 7 weeks period, I was prepared to do anything to get her back. So I'm sending her text messages and everything was recorded then because it was all messages going backwards and forwards. Accepting the responsibility for anxiety issues and things of the past and saying I promised to change and the things that I was saying to try and get the relationship back. And I'm prepared to blame myself for everything. And look back at that, and it was horrific. But yeah, she lived in the flat just over the road then for 7 weeks before coming back to me. We had a brilliant Christmas that year. This was Christmas 2016. And we came out of Christmas and everything just turned immediately. She was looking at getting a job in a local nursery. And she'd gone up there. She'd done, I don't know if you call it an assessment, but she was up there on the one day for about 4 or 5 hours. And it was all lined up to start in the January period. But she told her friends that for financial reasons and that she'd turn the job down. The reason she turned the job down is because she wanted to also be seen as though she can't work while she's with me, that I won't allow her to work. I can't remember all the ins and outs of this exactly to relate now, but it was almost like the final straw at the time. And she just completely flipped in that January to the point where I was coming home and I'd started at the end of the December before the new year. It came round voice recording. I'd pull up out the front of the house, start my voice recorder going on my phone and walk into the house. And I'd walk into, 9 out of 10 times absolute hell. And it wasn't just Sarah, it was the way that the atmosphere in the house. And she also was working on Lily. So I'd have both Sarah and Lily sort of ignoring me when I come in. You know what I mean? It's there's a lot behind that where I couldn't take photos of Sarah. As a family, you want to take photos on a day out, and I love to photograph and film everything. I do it now for Oscar's karting career. So I loved, that's just me. I've always been the same since I was a child. Give me a camera, I'll photograph everything. And she hated it. She was always looking away. She'd flip her head around as soon as I went to take a shot. And Lily was copying her. Had learnt that behaviour from her. So I got multiple photos of the back of both of their heads. Oh, I'm doing it again. Losing my chain of thought.
You're absolutely fine. I guess I just want to sort of fast forward a little bit to the moment that you you had your interaction with the police. Now, we were talking a little bit about this before this started. So, and I think this was because you needed the keys, you'd moved out, and
and of course,
this is as usual.
This is just a little bit that you know from the first couple of videos I put up on the channel. So, in all honesty, I haven't even scratched the surface yet, you know, in terms of sharing what's to come. But that first interaction with the police, Sarah had left me on that Thursday, and it was now Saturday morning. So Lily's mobile phone had been left behind with me when Sarah had gone. So I wanted to get Lily's mobile phone back over to her, also points of communication with her. And I knew that she was stopping at a sister's house, well, a sister's boyfriend house. The flat opposite is a council house under a sister's name, or was at the time. But a sister had moved out into a partner's house and was keeping that flat under her name as a fallback plan, you know, in case her relationship broke down. So I'd gone over to there anyway, and her sister had opened the door and said she's not here. Her car was parked up on the driveway, but her sister said she's not here. Get off my drive. I'm calling the police, which she did. I didn't realise at the time, and the situation was while I'd come out of my house and made the journey over to her sister's house, she was coming back from her sister's house with the police to my house to pick up some belongings. So she called the police to lay down a story that she was scared of coming home, that she might be attacked or something like that, whatever she said to them. And what she'd done on that Saturday morning was come home, picked up a few bits, whatever she took, and took the dogs, the 2 pugs. So, of course, I'm outside the sister's house now. The sister's now calling the police, but obviously to let the police know that I'm there. So when they come over, which is what happened, they dropped Sarah off just round the corner before they come and pulled up alongside me. And I said, oh, hi, guys. I showed them my phone. I said, I'm just calling you now. I said, I just need to get my house keys back from this property. My partner's moved out. I don't want people in the house while I'm at work. So I just need my house keys back. The police told me to head on up to my shop, that they'd then bring the police the keys over to me shortly after, which they did. But I didn't know at that point that they'd already spent time with Sarah, coming over to my house, taking her back and so on. So they'd probably been with her for an hour or so. Well, half an hour, sorry, looking back. So when they turned up at my shop an hour or so later and brought the keys over, police guy was fine, normal guy, came in, gave me the keys, told me to just stay away from that property. They told her and the sister to stay away from my property too. That's just the police trying to, you know, keep some ground between to lessen the risk, you know, that there's any problems. But the policewoman, and I can't remember what she said, but looked right down her nose at me. And I knew in that instant, because I'd seen Sarah doing this with her friends, I knew her friends didn't want to know me, or I had a good idea that they didn't like me because I wasn't even allowed to meet them. And this woman, I'd only just met Sarah. She'd probably spent an hour with her and absolutely hated my guts. And that was the first person within the umbrella of what you've got a class of the family law system, which involves the police, you know, school teachers, social workers, solicitors, etc., and the judges at the top. That was the very first person that I spoke with that was that way inclined, if you know what I mean, that was very biased automatically because she'd spoke to another lady and learned immediately to hate me as a man, as a father. And little did I know.
I think that you'd mentioned that you've kind of noticed this trend of like, you go girl, you know, female solidarity.
Oh, I've seen it for years now, yeah. If you put up a post, I've just put one up on my Facebook page yesterday or the day before, and it's a short video. I'm just trying to think which one it was now, but it was one of the shorts I've made, which is also on YouTube, and it was saying about coming home and my children were gone. So it was that video. And I put that up on my Facebook page. A lady from Australia commented on it. She's got no idea who I am. I've never seen her before. And, well, she put a laughing symbol on it, a laughing reaction to it. And I looked onto her page. I thought, who is this woman? Why is she laughing at my post? I looked onto her page and I seen her bio. And the things that she said in there, one of them was a BAM symbol, the red circle with the line through it. And it said cis, C-I-S, men. I thought, what's cis men? So I Googled it. And a cis man, it says he's a male, assigned male, you know, recognised as a male at birth. So she's got anti-man. And then she said trans peeps with a tick. And I thought, well, that says it all. Then there's a woman there that just hates men. Now, she's put a laughing symbol on seeing the pain that I'm in a short video I'd made. And she found that funny because I'm a man, she doesn't know me, that's in pain. And yeah, and that's funny. But what I have noticed, and specifically on a post that I made in January, which was the first ever video I've had go viral. It was a 17-second short video. I was walking past the family courts in Birmingham Centre with my son Oscar. We'd just come out of the children's hospital because he broke his little finger a couple of weeks before, and we'd had a checkup. And we were just walking past the courts, and I didn't think anything. Stopped him and said, "Oh, hang on a second." And I pointed the camera at myself, and Oscar stood next to me, and I made this short clip saying, "Look where we are. We're outside the courts, and look what they failed to do. You know, they failed to keep us apart. We're together." And I put that up on Facebook on the afternoon when I got back, and it absolutely exploded. And to this point now, it's got almost 300,000 views on it.
Wow.
And of course, there's hundreds and hundreds of comments in there then, and reactions. And I noticed a pattern very quickly of women in there saying, "Oh, he doesn't look comfortable. Why have you put him in the video? He shouldn't be there," and all this sort of stuff. If you know Oscar, and if you look at the video, you can see he was on the edge of breaking out into a big smile. He's perfectly happy. He understands and knows everything that's happened. He's nearly 15. You know, he's very aware. I've always been upfront and open and straight with him of the whole process and what's going on. Just because I don't want him one day turning around and finding out something that, you know, he should have known years before that's going to knock him off the rails. So I noticed this pattern that every single person in the comments, and there must have been about 30 or 40 of them that was negative, was female.
How weird. How strange, eh?
Yeah, very, very odd. And a lot of them block you. They leave the message and block you so that you can't reply. So I'd take screenshots of their post, share the screenshot back into the chat log with my comment, with my response on there. And there's a massive anti-male bias thing going on. The entire family law system is set up in that way. The social workers that work within it, I've only ever had one male social worker. Every other one of them has been female. And I think it's people, if this is just my opinion, the women that are going into this system to become social workers are potentially women that have been abused or are anti-cis men, for example, that want to have that power and control. So there's a lot of toxic people working and running the system literally from the ground up that are ensuring it keeps going in this way. And how can you
mad,
fight that and stand up against it? Yeah,
you would like to think in a modern democracy that, you know, everyone gets a level footing, everyone gets a level playing ground, because yes, there are two sides to every story, and we understand that, but there doesn't seem to be. Well, let's hear about his side to things. It's straight away. Yeah. How are you, madam? How are you? And what's happened to you? And you can sod off because I'm talking to her. Okay.
I mean, half of the problem, I've seen this in your video, the one where you said dads matter too. As you were driving, and you said, the very first thing you said is, "I'm not attacking mums or women." And the problem we've got is if you talk about what you can see is a blatant issue within this system, the minute that you talk about it because it's a gender-driven comment, you are immediately attacked. You're downplayed. And I've all the way through been outspoken. I'll be honest, the entire 9-year process now, from day one, I've been talking out on Facebook. And I knew I had to, because I knew I needed to gather people around me to support me at the time with what I have, you know, how I was struggling. And what I've also seen throughout the years is people from America, from Canada, that have supported me and then ended up reaching out to their own children themselves and ended up, you know, reconnecting because they've got strength from talking to me and from seeing my journey. And that it's difficult because you're trying to go on your own journey. You need your energy. You need 100% of your energy for your journey. But I had to put some aside for other people, which is very difficult to do. But then you get it back when you see another father reunited with his son. You know, and you know that you've made that little bit of good in the world, if you know what I mean, that you've made, you know, an improvement on their lives. And really, that's the point of the YouTube channel, although the underlying drive behind the whole channel is to hopefully get back in touch with my daughter. This is hopefully an area where she'll look into one day and see that the reality or what I'm talking about doesn't match up with what she's been taught since she was prior to being 10 years old, to be honest with you. She's 19 now. So as an adult now, she can hopefully, look into this and realise, and understand the situation a bit better than she would have done growing up. But the other side of the channel is if the channel does become a bit of a community where people can come forwards and talk to each other, whether that's just in the comments, whether this that's happening now, having a live stream chat with yourself, then it's all good. If we can all come together, talk and support each other. And I know that I've helped, spread some of that positivity, then for me, the channel, even if I don't eventually get back to my daughter through it, the channel has still been definitely worthwhile. So.
Absolutely. Because I think this whole situation, it can feel like a solo journey. It can feel like you against the world, because every institution it feels like is against you. But when you start hearing other people's input, you start to realize, wait a minute, there's patterns here. There's other people going through it. Now, what you said there about people jumping to conclusions and this, that, and the other. I mean, I've had the same. I mean, I had the video where I was talking about I have to pick up my children from a public car park. And straight away I get the comments of, well, there must be a reason for that. You must have done something if the courts ordered you to do that. No. The courts have ordered nothing, my friends. It is what she has decided. And therefore, that is how it is. Because as you've said there, they hold all the keys. They hold this at you. They say jump, you say how high. Because if you don't,
if I stop you on that point quickly, where you said, no, the courts haven't decided that I have to, pick the children up from a car park. That was the case in my situation where Sarah didn't want me going to the schools. She wanted, because her friends go to the schools. So she wouldn't allow me to do school pickups. So in court, of course, she raises no. I work as she'd set up her own little business the moment she left me, working in childcare, looking after people's children. It gives a great
ironic,
image,
isn't it?
Yeah, it gives a great image. So she first worked at a small nursery up the road as soon as she left me. And then she set up her own business, shortly after. But so her claim in court was that, no, because I'm on the school scene, because I've got to pick up, other people's children, so I don't want him there. The reality was she didn't want me there for the same reason she alienated the children from me, and triangulated her friends from me. She didn't want me, in earshot of anybody. She didn't want people to see that I was there trying to be a dad, trying to pick my children up from school. So straight away, I lost that responsibility as a father to pick my children up from school, and that crushed me. I think back to all the times of waiting on the school playground for Oscar to come out when he was 4 or 5 years old, and the excitement seeing him with his face pressed up against the glass on the inside of the door before the bell goes and they're allowed out. All them little moments. They're the biggies. Yeah, they're the biggest things for me. And I've lost that.
I think, to be honest with you, Lee, I think your experiences that you have with your child now, who's living with you, Oscar, that's what it's all about. That is the main thing that you're doing this for, so you can be a dad. Obviously, we know about your daughter. How about your oldest? What's the situation with him?
The oldest is Tyler. As I said, there's three stories in this. Each child is a different journey. So if I just focus quickly, and I'll try and get through this without going down a side branch on Tyler. So when we separated, Tyler was 13. He'd had a 6 years. This is his own words, and you talk to him. He's not making this up. And I'd seen bits as well of what he'd referred to. But there was 6 years of physical abuse between himself and his mum from around the age of 8, he estimated. So they had throughout them years, the last 6 years, especially when he was 11, 12, 13, and he was starting to fight back. It was an incredibly explosive relationship between the two of them. As I said, when I'd won the first court hearing and we got that first bit of contact away from the contact centre and he came straight back to me, he physically ran from his mum. So the one day I was in my shop and I got a phone call from him and he says, "All right, Dad, I'm just 5 minutes from your shop. I'm just walking up the hill now." I thought, oh my God, there's court arrangements in place and he's walking towards my shop. And I said to him when he got there, he said, "I'm not going back to Mum." He says, "I've got my toothbrush and I've got some clothes in my bag." He's packed stuff before he went to school in the morning. so that he could come out of school and come straight to me. I had no idea. So I said to him, okay, well, and I don't care if people look at this as the wrong way of doing things. I've had to do the things the way I believe things should be done as a father. So I went out the back of my shop with him and I sat in my car and I called the police. And I said to him, I've got to let the police know that you've come back to me, because the first thing Mum will do when she comes out of work and realises you're not there is she'll call the police. Right? She'll know that you're with me and she'll call the police. So at least if the police are aware of where you are, that you're safe, that should be fine. So I called the police and Tyler sat in the car with me while I had the call running through the loudspeaker in the car. So he just sat there quietly and he listened. And I needed him to listen and understand that it wasn't my decision, that this wasn't going to be able to happen for him, that it was the police, that it was the system. And the police lady came on the phone and I explained the situation. I said, he's not going back to her. He's happy to make himself homeless. She went away, she got some advice and come back and she says, no, because there's a court order in place, you must return him right now to his mum, otherwise you're in breach of the order. I come off the call, immediately called my solicitor. She was out of office. So I had no choice at the time. I returned Tyler just around the corner from his mum's house so my car wouldn't be seen. And he could then just walk in the door and, and everything was peaceful. I don't know if it was just the next day then, the day or two afterwards. A message from him again, and I think it was a Sunday because I was off work. He was walking to his nan and granddad's, to my parents, which was a mile from where his mum was now living. And I said, all right, I'm coming out. We knew by this time, I spoke to my solicitor, I got the call back that Tyler can now choose where he wants to live. He's 14 and it's entirely his choice. Well, nearly 14. Oh, yeah, he was 14. And so I picked him up I met him halfway towards my parents, picked him up, went back to my parents, and he come out. He was in the cadets and he had this massive army rucksack thing, luggage carrier that he had full of clothes. And he physically got himself out of the situation with his mum. He was prepared to put himself on the streets rather than stay in that situation. There was abuse going on.
It all really, doesn't it?
Yeah, but the abuse was going on while we were in the court system. And you'd think that being in the court system would put his mum in line, keep her on a straight and narrow. But over a spilt cup of coffee, the one down the living room, I don't know what the abuse was. There's things that have happened he's never told me. He's told me there's more than what I know. But I don't really want to put that up on this now. I probably will go into this because Tyler doesn't want me talking about it too much.
Yeah, sure.
But he's had a very, very violent relationship with his mum and physically removed himself from the system. So, of course, he was 14 at the time. He came back to me. And that was in May 2018. Now, you fast forward up to Christmas, 7 months period. And I went through absolute hell with him. He just absolutely rebelled. He was in college and he dropped that. He was doing animal management course. Mm-hmm. I was trying to sort of help direct him towards potentially being a vet. There was a new facility up the road being opened. And I thought, you're in the right place now. There's a brilliant career there if you fancy that career path. And he just dropped out and girls got in the way of it all and he quit college and But what I went through with him here, and I'll say this, and I know he'll be okay about me mentioning this. But I had to absorb all the pain, frustration and anger and everything that was coming out of him over a 6-year build-up with his mum. It came to a point one day I'm sat on the sofa and he'd been up in his bedroom. He came down and he just stood over me, eerily quiet, arms folded. And it was ever such a weird situation. And then all of a sudden, I'd got the Sky remote control on my knee. And I was just sat up on the edge of the sofa and he just ripped the remote off my knee because the telly was logged into his YouTube channel. And I was watching some music or something through there. And he said, that's my YouTube. This battle with him that had been going on over them months where he wanted to be the man of the house. As a dad, you've got to maintain, order. You've got to be above the child. You can't let the child just run all over you. And so I had to stand up in his face and said, give me the remote back. The next thing I know, he went for me. I pushed him away. And then he came at me and he had a small knife in his hand. It was a throwing knife. So it was only, well, that looks bigger on the screen. But it was around about a 5-inch, about a 5-inch knife. And of course, half of that is in his hand. Wow. And he came at me with it raised above him, up in the air. And what he didn't know, because I was going through a lot with him, and I'd learned how to voice record situations going through everything with his mum. I voice recorded that situation and that attack. And luckily, I managed to overpower him and pin him down and got the knife off him. And eventually, went off up to his room. He stormed off. And he'd attacked me also at a local trampoline centre in the cafe called Rush. And he went for me in front of his friends, mum and dad, in there. And so the violence from him, that was how he was reacting. He'd learned that you react with violence. Now, he hadn't seen me hit his mum. He'd seen me curl up into a ball. He'd seen me hold her down, if you know what I mean, to protect myself. He'd seen things, glass bottles, glass spirit bottles being thrown at me, a fork, and there's a metal fire bin lid, which I've still got, even though I've had a completely brand new garden since. I've just kept that lid. I don't know why. It's a cast iron lid with a ring on the top. And I've got the video of when she threw that at me at point blank range. So Tyler had witnessed and seen all this sort of stuff growing up. And so here he was now, a young man, 14. And that's how he was reacting to that. That's how everything was coming out of him. It was coming out through violence. So we got to the end of the year. And Lily and Oscar had came over for the Christmas then with us, which was the last Christmas I had with them, Christmas 2018. And Tyler kicked off in front of them. So I told him to get out. He went off to his nan's, which was his mum's mum. Now, I don't think he'd seen her for a couple of years at that point. But when it was about 4, at least 4 years. So when he came back to me in the May 2018, I got him back in touch with his biological nan, with his mum's mum, because his mum hadn't just alienated the children from me and my side of the family. She'd alienated them from her own mum as well. So this had been going on prior to her leaving me. So I got him back in touch with his biological nan, and by the time the Christmas had come round, they'd built up a relationship. So after he'd attacked me in front of Lily and Oscar, he went off to his nan's and he spent a few weeks up there living with her before coming back. Eventually, I had to do the right thing and get him to move out and find his own place, because I knew he needed to be on his own feet. He was living in his room upstairs and he'd completely trashed it. And it was he got swallow, whatever the word is for it was disgusting. And he got girls coming round. And I had to say to him the one day, look, we'd had a row. And I said, look, just go, find your own place. And I knew that it was the right thing to do for him. From that moment onwards, as soon as he left me, he sofa surfed at his mates for a while. Then he found himself a place in the YMCA. And then he moved out and got himself a private flat. The relationship I have with him now is brilliant. It's the best it's ever been. From that moment that I made him, I had to force him to stand on his own 2 feet. And it was a bit of a crossroads, because what I didn't know was going on when he was exploding over that sort of 7 months period through 2018. I didn't know he was taking drugs.
Okay.
And he'd been dealing them as well. So
Right.
this was all through people he knew. I don't know who the people were. He kept them out of my life. So he went through hell. And to look back now and to see him now, he's got full-time work. He's got a partner. They've got a little fuzzy dog. He's got his own private flat where they live together. And he suffers. He suffers with his mental health. He's in quite a bad way with that. He's getting therapy and a lot of support.
Well, how can he not? Think about it. He got his dad that he had nothing to do with and was probably told
that, yeah.
about him. Then he was with you, and then you went as well, and everything he'd seen with you. How could he not have been affected by that?
Well, another little bit on that with his dad. When Sarah had left me, and it was the end of the April, I was seeing the children sporadically, bits and pieces, up until the 29th of May. It was 28th or the 29th. It was a bank holiday Monday. I took them to the Cadbury World in Birmingham, and that'd be the last time I'd see them. Tyler then phoned me the one morning when he was on his way to school. He said, "Oh, can you pick me up? Can I have a lift?" But this was behind his mum's back. So I was sitting eating breakfast, dropped the breakfast, went out, picked him up, brought him back here for a little bit, and then drove him the rest of the way to school. And, I've done it again. I've lost my train of thought.
No, it's all right. So we were saying, obviously, what he's gone through, how it can affect him mentally. So you've had the trip to Cadbury World and whatnot.
Yeah.
How do you think he is now? If you look at him, how he is now, how do you think this whole thing has affected him?
Massively. I mean, it's contributed to where he is in life. He could have completed college and he could now be working as a veterinarian. You know, he'd have a very good, stable income. But still, I'm proud of him, you know, for at least coming out the other end of it. Because for most people that go through that sort of trauma and abuse, they don't come out the other end of it. You know, they can end up on a park bench somewhere, you know, sitting in the doorway, you know, in the middle of the city, you know. So, yeah, I'm massively proud of him. He knows that, and he knows the support that I've always gave him. But at times it had to be hard love. It had to be, you know, to enable him to find his own feet and to get up and have to sort himself out, because I couldn't do that for him. There was no advice or nothing I could say to him that would change anything that would help him. But I know he looks back now, you know, and this is why we got such a close bond.
And honestly,
Yeah.
How are you?
I can't really answer.
No, I can imagine. I think to go through what you've gone through and to still be there, because there's been plenty of people, and we're not allowed to say the word because YouTube doesn't like it. They've checked out, shall we say.
Yeah.
But you're still there. And I think that has got to be the motivational, inspirational side of it. The fact that despite this, you are still there. So who is there supporting you?
Firstly, my parents. And my parents, specifically my mum, in the earlier days when I was suffering with the anxiety and all the problems we were having in a relationship. And my parents were both there for Sarah equally as they were there for me. So she's seen my parents as her parents in that regard. So I could go down there. My mum had previously suffered anxiety. It's not hereditary, which was something I originally thought. That's why originally I was blaming it on myself, thinking anxiety was hereditary. But my mum had suffered it as well as she was growing up, and it's quite a common thing. So my mum fully understood to a T exactly the emotions and the feelings and what you go through. And it's unexplainable to somebody who hasn't suffered it. They just can't get a grasp on the reality of it. But my mum was massive, still is, has been absolutely massive for me on the emotional side of things. And then my dad has always been there when I was suffering and I didn't want to go to work, for example, and I couldn't face work because I'm trying to get back to my children. That's all I can think of. My dad was there to make sure that I went to work and that I kept, the bricks and mortar, the roof above my head. So what I've got from both parents combined has meant that I've always been emotionally strong for my mum and physically strong. I've had the infrastructure around me because of my dad. And I think with one of them lacking, you know what I mean? You could very easily fall off a steep cliff, because if my dad wasn't there to make sure that I kept going to work, that I kept focused on my business and I let that go, then with the business going, I'd have lost all my income. I wouldn't have been able to go to the family courts and fight for my children. And then I'd have collapsed on that side of things. But without my mum there, especially in the earlier days as I was suffering with anxiety, to help me, I could go to my mum in any state, completely broken down, and I'd leave, an hour or two later, feeling on top of the world. I've got this, I'm back in control of my own thoughts and emotions again. So, yeah, what you get from each parent in my situation has been a different thing, completely different thing, but it's been a whole, it's what it all means together. And it's the reason, Jeff, definitely the reason that I'm still here.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you take from your parents is what you want to give to your children as well. And you are always going to be there. Whatever happens, you will always there to be able to give that to them. One thing you did mention in one of your videos, which I think is important for people who are watching this, was a particular Facebook group that you said that you was part of and is actually
right,
yeah. Tell us a bit about that, because I think this could be a good resource for people if they don't know that this exists.
Yeah. I was put onto this group by a cousin who reached out to me once she'd seen that I'd separated and I'd gone into the alienation. And she put me onto somebody else who put me onto this group. And they're called DADS. It's just D.A.D.S. And it's short for Dads Against Double Standards. Now, the group is run, or I think was run anyway, by Andrew John Teague and Sophie David. Now, Sophie is the one who's responsible for naming the group. It's not an anti-female group. It's for mums and dads. It's for everybody. That group has really gained traction over the years. And so it's got, I'm not too sure now, I think it's 50, 60, 100 or something thousand followers. So there is a constant flow, literally a daily flow of parents coming into the system, chatting on the group, reaching out for help. I can turn on there almost any time of the day and read a comment on there from mostly dads saying, "Hi, I've just had my children taken from me. What's the family law system? How does it work? What do I do? I'm breaking down. I don't know how to cope with this." So that resource for me was massive at the time, and it helped me to start to understand that I'm not on my own in this situation, that there are many, many thousands, I believe millions, especially around Europe and Australia, the western sort of side of the world. There are millions of us going through this. It's a huge, huge industry. So I definitely recommend Dads Against Double Standards for anybody that's suffering parental alienation, needs advice, has got a friend that's suffering it, they can point them in that direction. More recent years, there's another group as well called PAPA. That's PAPA, who are raising, awareness of alienation. They've just done a big gig down in Portsmouth where they had 1,000 people attend. And is it called the Spinnaker Tower? Something like that, where they lit that up in a green colour that's their symbol. And I think they've just done Niagara Falls as well and lit that up in the same in Canada. So they're spreading worldwide. So that's another one to definitely look into. And his name is Simon Cobb, who runs PAPA. Again, somebody else. And another one, if anybody wants to do a good podcast that I've been following, is Jared Purcell in Australia. And only yesterday, I'm struggling. He's regained contact with his daughter. I think Brilliant. She's 6 years old. She's here in England and he's in Australia, and the mum brought her over to England. So since she was a little baby, just a toddler, he's just yesterday morning, I woke up, turned my phone on, and there's his post saying he's got a line of contact and new photos of her and videos of her dancing. So he's been, I think, all I know, massively inspirational as well. That's Jared Purcell, Jared Burcell, of the, what's it called, Fathers Podcast, I think it's called, in Australia. But if you search that, you should find him pretty quickly. But there are other groups out there. I've seen Dads Matter. There's also women out there, and I've got to give a shout out to, oh God, what's that? I knew I'd forget her name. I'll say it in the comments underneath afterwards. Yeah. Leslie Stancil, her name is, from America, and she writes up daily. Just writes, and the way she talks, it's pro-father posts, and she is absolutely brilliant. She deals with a lot of flack from women that hate her for doing this, but she is absolutely brilliant. And I'll put any links, any names and people I can recommend. I'll drop them in the comments section after we've finished.
That's great. This shows that there's hope, folks. There is hope out there. It isn't the end of the road for everyone. And I, before we sort of move on to, because we have had some comments come onto this, which I'm going to pop onto here.
I can't see them at my end. So.
That's all right. I'll be popping them on the screen. Don't you worry. I think massive kudos to you, mate, for everything that you've done and continue to do. The fact your relationship with Tyler, with Oscar, and hopefully going forward will be Lily as well, will be all testament of what you're doing. Okay, so massive kudos to you, mate. But to really sort of ram things up, let's have a look at what people have been saying. So 50 to finish.
In there.
Been looking forward to this one. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Me too.
I hope it was worth it.
Absolutely. So Finley won Archers. My brother had a kid with a woman who hasn't tried to reach out to my brother or her son in years. He doesn't receive a penny, but it's absolute bliss for everyone. They are very lucky. I mean, different situations for everyone, isn't it, Lee?
I've seen every end of the stick. I've seen couples that get on better after they separate. And I've just recently seen a couple where they went into family court. The mum wanted the dad to have some contact with the children. The family court tried to really limit that contact. They both walked out and made an agreement themselves outside the court, which was far better than what the courts wanted. Worked that one out. Both of them agreed that the courts were dead set against, what they both wanted as an outcome for their own children. So they walked out and they get on brilliantly now. So yeah, I've seen every end of the stick, everything. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm at the wrong end of the stick, but
well, yeah. It is what it is. But Blue Balance UK. So Noel, he says, sounds like transference. I'm sure Tyler thinks the world of you, especially helping him to find his biological dad. So what's his sort of point of view of that?
Well, that's the bit that I meant to mention earlier. It's one of the things that fell out of my mind. I was leading up to it actually and totally lost my train of thought. Because remember I said that Sarah left me at the end of April, and she first went into complete hiding on the 5th of June, so 2017. It was a Thursday. And Tyler had then reached out to me about the school run. Can I pick him up the one morning when he was walking to school? Somewhere between Father's Day, which was the last day I seen him in 2017, which was June, I believe the 17th. Somewhere between there and the end of June, I would then find out in roughly October through a court statement that Sarah and the social workers had written. I'd find out that Tyler was reintroduced to his biological, introduced for the first time to his biological dad in that June. So I knew it was in the last 2 weeks, somewhere of that June. And his mum had actually wrote in the Children's Services statement, her own quotation, her own words, Tyler now has his biological father back in his life and no longer needs Lee. That black and white, it was just written there in the paperwork.
Wow.
But he's never known his biological dad.
No.
And it's fantastic that she's put him in touch with his biological dad. But she's done that, and he's explained where they met at a pub. She's done that simply to bring him in as a tool. That's all people are, they're tools. And so Tyler and his dad got back together. And over that, what was it, a 6 months period before, what were we talking now? Either way, over that at the end of 2017, when he was in touch with his dad, he showed me the chat history between them. And he opened up to his dad about the physical abuse. And his dad's reaction was, are you okay now? And without having this to hand to put on the screen, that was literally the end of their communication. After that, he just cut ties really with Oscar. Wasn't uptight with Tyler, sorry. He wasn't bothered. He got his own children there, his own family. He'd way moved on. And he just wasn't interested in the relationship with Tyler. And I reached out to him because Tyler wanted me to. And the messages are all still there. And I filled him in. What a pleasure it's been, raising Tyler, and explained everything to him and said, Tyler wants us to meet up. Are you up for this? And he just replied back, Tyler knows where I am. He's got my number if he needs me. And that's it. So Tyler doesn't have any more communication with his biological dad. He hasn't since. The guy just wasn't interested. And I don't think it was worth Tyler's, the effort, the stress, or the worry, trying to hold that together. So,
could have gone the other way. It's you don't know until you're in that situation.
Yeah.
But we have interesting one here. So from Casey, would you ever live in America? So I would. Would you? Would you want to live in America?
I don't know. There's great places over there. There's great places over here. I mean, if it's somewhere that's nicer than the area I'm living in currently, I'll live anywhere. So I think the family law system runs very similar in America. Throughout my years, I've been involved in this and seen people over there. It's a very similar situation. So in terms of meeting, trying to rekindle relationships with the children, I don't think it's going to be any different over there. As for living over there, that depends on the area. Some areas, yes, some areas, no.
There we go. One that I really want to put on here, and I think it's good for you to see. From Carl Love, you're an inspiration for you. So you're getting some support here from the watchers here. So take that on board. Always take the good stuff as well. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think this is a very good statement here.
Is it? Oh,
Odin?
Kyle Love. Yeah, sorry, that's my friend.
That's right.
Cheers, Dwayne.
Yeah. Odin, good luck out there, gentlemen. Yeah. I think that's a very good statement for everyone. I think we have to be a little bit careful out there. So 50 to finish. I wish I could reach through the screen and give you a hug, Lee. You're a good man and great interview, Chris. Thank you, mate. Appreciate that.
There you go, virtual one.
There we go. Darren Campbell, apparently I need a podcast, which is what this is. So this is the podcast.
Yeah, okay. This is my this is both of our debut, isn't it? This is our first ever time dipping our toe in the water.
Yeah, absolutely.
And hopefully many more. And what I would like to say, if there's anybody watching these running podcasts who would like me on, get in touch. Anybody, doesn't matter if you got 10 followers or 10 million, I'll jump on board. So just get in touch.
Absolutely. And just to sort of correct you there, 50 to Finisher says it's the Spinnaker Tower because he's ex-Navy.
That's right.
And then he corrected himself because he spelt it wrong. So there we go. So it's the Spinnaker. Absolutely.
That's it, yeah.
And yeah, and again, great interview. Really enjoyed it. All the best to both of you. Yeah, I think we got some really good comments there. Lee, thank you ever so much for everything. Okay, mate. Thank you for jumping on this and opening everything up to us. You're a great inspiration, like I said, to everyone.
Thank you also to yourself, Chris, for giving me this opportunity, and also for breaking my virginity in podcasts.
You had to ruin it now. This is going, that's going to get clipped now. You realise? Jesus. Oh, Lee. Right. Anyways, folks, we're going to be stopping there. Please stay tuned because next week I have got another podcast episode coming up, and so keep an eye out for that. And see you again soon, folks. Take care.
Bye.